Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arnie Lukes here at the Crossroads, and I'd like to welcome our guest panelists, Judy Auchterlonie from Victoria. Welcome, Judy.
Thanks, Arnie. Hello, everyone.
And Beata Lukes from Adelaide. Welcome, Beata.
Good morning, everyone.
No worries. Now, the first part of
Can't hear.
today's
We're on.
forum, I'd like to actually just bring up, and that is the work of Douglas Social Credit of, in particular, the editor, Frances Hutchinson. And her work, in my view, is exemplary, and I can't recommend it enough. And in particular, I wanted to go to the social artist here in the autumn 2018, and there's an article there, Children, Screen Time and Nature by George K. Russell. And George is dealing with this, I think, most important subject, but I also wanted to touch on a book, and this book is by Jerry Mander, and it's Four Arguments for the Elimination of Television. And I think that as a subject for today's forum, to lay the groundwork, is a very good start. And so I'd like to open it up to Beata to take the lead. Beata.
Yes, Francis Hutchinson has written extensively about the house, the household, the role of women and men in the family, and the importance of space for the children and their education and them growing into adulthood and being responsible and being mindful and being in awe of the beauty of the world around us.
Hmm.
So this is probably what we need to mention. And the book by Jerry Mander is one of the subjects. He's writing about television, which is one of the subjects that connects to today's forum in a sense that it touches on a technology that has had such an enormous impact on the viewers.
Hmm.
So America was probably the first one, Jerry Mander says, that
Hmm.
has, if you want, acquired this one-mindedness by reacting to the same way to the regurgitated somebody else's observation of reality
Hmm.
being served on a platter to the whole nation.
I find that interesting because I know that I think it was an American president, Richard Nixon, who made the comment that the American people will never believe it unless they see it on television. And I think that that's a fascinating observation at the
Mm.
highest levels of administration. So obviously, the work of Edward Bernays in crystallizing public opinion and things like that, this medium is so profound and so invasive, evasive, whatever. It just permeates the thinking, the psyche. Your thoughts, Judy?
Indeed, the amount of time that people spend in front of a TV screen, and children in particular, it's scary because children are not getting, they're not outside, they're not playing, they're not getting that communication physically by touching um, the things around them,
Mm.
nature.
Hmm.
They're animals usually live inside, and we've let it go way too far. I think TV these days, and I don't quite know how to turn it round. It's always an individual effort.
Mm.
Um, oh yes,
Mm. I'm going to jump in on it, Judy, a little, and that
you
is,
do that.
and just to give a report, first-hand report.
Okay.
Last weekend we had grandchildren around,
Mm.
and I must admit, one is that the screen time was zero, and we had some chickens in a sort of like a bird cage. We had some chickens in a bird cage, six, I think it was six. Beautiful little things. They're only a couple of weeks old, and the fact is that the children between the chickens and a pregnant ewe, a sheep that I've got in the paddock, we spent virtually hours being entertained. And I mean, we were
Mm.
lost we were lost with feeding them. We were lost
Mm.
with looking at them, with touching them, holding them, with walking around the paddock with the sheep. The day just melted, and it was the
Yes.
most beautiful day. And the
Yeah.
fact is that the elders who reported back that evening on the phone, and they just said it was just absolutely gorgeous. It was a wonderful day, and before the children left, they were
Mm.
so spent by what they'd done that they were prepared to sleep on a concrete slab. They were so tired, and it was just, to me, that's a wonderful result and an
Yes.
illustration of what can be done if you like, the Garden of Eden that's illustrated behind us in the backdrop.
Mm.
Beata.
Yes, the problem with the child in modern era is that they are basically overprotected,
Mm.
and screened off from any experience that is not scheduled by the parent or the school or the child care, or so everything is sameness, sameness, sameness. It's very rare that children walk to school on their own. They are driven because the parents have to quickly dispose of them,
Mm.
rushing to work, and the same on the way back, and contacts with the peers is not free. You can't just go to the park because there might be something lurking in the bushes. it's it's strange. It's devoid of normalcy. It's
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know how else to
Hmm.
put it.
Oh,
That's good.
I think it's a very good
Mm.
summary, Beata, because my
Mm.
childhood growing up, of course, we had dirt roads. It was a suburb, but it was dirt roads, and it was only
Yeah.
as we were sort
Mm,
of 5 or 10 years old that the bitumen and paving was put down, and so on the basis that dirt was very much a part of your life with the garden, the chooks. Dad would bring home a lamb to fatten up or a piglet to fatten up and things like that. And this was only on a house block. So it was certainly
mm,
a
Mm.
different upbringing to today where the footprint, the home size footprint is so small that you're lucky if you've
yes.
got a room for a lawn. The room
Oh
size
yeah.
for a lawn, it's so
Yeah.
small.
Mm.
It's completely different. And so there's a disconnect. Your thoughts, Judy?
Oh, what a wonderful life, Arnie, being around nature all
Mm,
the time. I grew up like you, grew up very much a rural setting, and so did my children. I was thankful I could give them that. My grandchildren too get a lot of interaction with farming and what's going on out there, and somehow we have to make a conscious effort, I think, to stop to control their screen time. It's not easy, I know. For a lot of
mm,
mums, it's not easy. It's a
mm,
good babysitter. Well, it's a bad babysitter, I should say.
mm,
And that screen time, oh dear, it's just and it just makes children or lazy, I will say. It might not be the best word, but yes.
mm,
You try and encourage them, turn the TV off and go outside. No, they don't want to do that. The screen has them mesmerised,
mm.
Yeah.
I think.
It is
Mm,
hypnotic, and that's a very important
mm,
observation. It's hypnotic.
yes.
And you said, is it a good babysitter? No, it's not. It's actually a bad babysitter. And
Mm,
I agree with you, Judy. But the
mm,
issue, I guess, now is that needs to be placed on the table is how can we actually, what are the practical answers that we can
that's
suggest
right.
to the young mums, the young dads? One is to take their foot off the pressure that they're under because they are under enormous pressure, a financial pressure and everything else. And then it's, well, okay, they're under pressure. How are they going to resolve this dilemma? Because we've presented a dilemma. That's what the forum's done. The dilemma is the pervasive screen time that's inordinately influencing the upbringing of our children, not necessarily to the good. And what practical answers have you got? I mean, I've got some, and I'm sure I can contribute those, but I'll give you the floor first. So, what practical answers, Beata?
Practical answers.
Hmm.
Organize yourselves with your friends instead of spending time messaging one another. organize yourself, go to the
Mm.
park, take the children, make it a barbecue day, make an excursion, try to tire them by walking
Mm.
rather than watching. And that would be one thing.
Hmm.
And also take along the snacks that are proper snacks that give them energy,
Hmm.
not chips, not Coca-Cola, snacks that are healthy and
Hmm.
giving them energy and glucose
Mm.
to be able to run.
Mm. Mm. That's a very good start. So you're actually reverting back to natural foods and an environmental perspective in the parks and things like that. Judy, your thoughts, practical answers.
Yeah, well, I think to improve our children's life in that respect, we have to become very involved, and I don't know if rewarding children is an answer. Um, that's a bit of a different subject, I guess. Um, Nothing thrills kids more than when mum and dad are involved with their activity, I think,
Mhm.
and that's we have to work on that. How do you get
Mm.
some children don't have the benefit of much outside area around them. It's children that live in cities. That's a real concern, and I suppose that's not going to be answered in a hurry. Yes, mum and dad have to make an effort,
Hmm.
and children motivate their children somehow
Mm.
to
Mm.
just really, I just want to go, I want to do this. Yeah,
Mm. Mm.
it's not an easy thing,
It's not an
mum and
easy.
dad.
That's right. I agree with you, Judy.
Mm.
And I'm
Mm.
thinking of grandchildren here. Now, with one grandson in particular, there's a lot of there were a lot of toys that he had, and there were a lot of,
Mm.
if you like, things to entertain him. But one of the things that his dad reminded me of that was really loved was actually just a small log of wood, this long, cut in slices. And from those slices, he used his imagination to build cities, to drive cars, to
Mm.
drive trucks, have a train, and all it was slices of wood in a sand pit. And I'm thinking, well, okay, if there's a tyranny of space, those clamshell sand pits, what
Yes.
one is it gets them into if you put beach sand in there, there's a salt component, and that means that the soil itself is really inert. And then the opportunity to play in the sand and build things and build a bridge and have a car go across the bridge and things like that,
Mm.
and their imagination. To me what it's doing is it's actually promoting thoughts. It's promoting seeing things when they're not actually there, and so they can write their own script. They can write their own story, and amongst that young boy and his peers, they would spend a long time just around the sandpit playing and just building and
Mm.
and all that. So it can be an inside or an outside. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sandpit, but to me the relationship with the pieces of wood, which were not cars, but they were to them, and I thought that was the
Yes.
most profound observation to look at that and realize that the child was actually placing their thinking into this imagination, the right hemisphere, instead of just logically processing thing. Oh, that's a car. I don't need to know that that's a car because it's a car. It's got four wheels, windows, doors, and it makes the sound of a car. Well, okay, there's no imagination there. But with a block of wood, he has to turn it into a car, and so it's that engagement with the natural world in the imagination. Beata, further thoughts?
I think reading the books to the children to
Hmm.
Mm.
start off the love of reading,
Hmm.
because there is no better way for increasing, improving, growing creativity than imagining the things that you read about,
Hmm.
that you are told about by
Hmm.
your grandparents in a
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
Yes.
So if an oldie like myself tells the child, "Oh, when we were young, we could run through the streets and play outside and nobody limited us," unless it was dark and we had to go inside because there was no other way.
Yeah.
um, we played till we were dead tired.
Mm.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
Those stories will bring something in.
mm,
Will start them think differently,
mhm,
hopefully.
mm. I noted
Oh,
that the reading the books um, places the thinking of the child into their area of imagination again, and that one book each time, if you read it multiple times, it's a classic. You may actually observe different things and place your thoughts somewhere else reading the same passage, and I think that that's absolutely fascinating.
mm,
And the engagement with the parent or the grandparent in that
yes.
realm, and that's why to me the role of grandparent is so profound. It's so important that if
Mm,
you're in a position where you have the time and you can actually be that, if you like, inspiration. And I use the word inspiration very carefully because it is. You inspire, there's a spirit there that you
Mm.
actually place into the mind of the child. So inspiration. So it really is a sacred calling, if you like, and not everyone has it. Not everyone can be that inspiration to grandchildren, but if you are and you have the opportunity, by jingoes, don't let go of it. Judy.
Yeah, 100%, Arnie. It's wonderful to be a grandparent. It's wonderful to have good contact with your grandchildren, and you are right. It can't be underestimated. And grandchildren always remember what we did, grandma did this, grandpa did that. Yeah, remember when grandpa did that? They never forget those things, do they? It's
Mm,
fantastic.
mhm,
Reading, even if grandparents can only read to their children, gosh, isn't that a valuable asset?
mhm. I think that's excellent. Actually, I'm really happy with where we've gone on this. And just before I go for last comments, I'll just highlight that if, say, as a young mum or a young dad, you're looking at this situation and you're saying, but, and I'm thinking, well, if you actually have the TV in front of you, the programmers, the actual directors, and I know it because I've been through film school and I know the power of suggestion. The program directors may have product placement, and that product placement is actually advertising to your children. Or they may have adverts that suit the particular kids' time on TV.
Mm,
That puts you as a parent under inordinate pressure to actually provide those resources to your children. And so they're actually sending you out to work in order to achieve things that the TV is actually more or less insisting that your children actually have. And so that to me is an undoing. It's an undoing of the opportunity. So you can actually deconstruct TV, but it's a whole program. It's a whole thing that you've got to think through. And then I think the rewards are there. You may not have to work as much, and you may have less of a materialistic life. But by jingoes, is it a better life? Anyway, final thoughts, Beata.
this might be an appeal to the teachers not to be so orthodox, maybe to take the class outside occasionally,
mm,
sit under the tree and read something to them and see what questions they will come up with. Um, because then it becomes interactive. It's not that they need to send the child with homework that they will have to do on the
mm.
computer again.
Hmm.
They learn nothing
Yeah.
from that. It's
Hmm.
only pressing buttons, and
Hmm.
pressing buttons is just training for the industry. That's what they
Mm,
prepare the children for.
Hmm.
But they are given the job of growing the young mind,
Hmm.
which is overriding any other aspect. So think about it.
Beautifully put, Beata. Thank you for that.
Thank
mm.
you.
Closing thoughts, Judy.
Well, I can only urge us all, grandparents, to get out there and push all these issues as much as they can. Have children. Make sure when you have grandchildren around you that you're instructing them not necessarily do this, do that. But you're encouraging them to look outside look away from the screen and look outside. What can we do? Where can we go? Can we talk about it? Yeah, even talking about um, a time that children have had in the playground or something, even talking about that, refreshing them, their memories and encouraging them to want more. Yeah.
Hmm. Beautifully put. I just as closing comments from my point of view, I think that when we placed the grandchildren in the car for them to go at the end of last weekend, I reminded them. I actually placed their thinking back into the situation with the chickens and the lamb, the sheep,
Mm,
and the paddock and walking and things like that, and they repeated the things back, so they're actually able to recall. So to me,
mm,
it's that you're actually instilling thoughts in their mind, and I
mm.
think that that's such a privileged position. So I've really enjoyed today, ladies. Thank you for joining in the Crossroads Forum. It's been beaut.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arnie.
No worries. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We'll hope to catch you again this time next week. Cheers. Arnie Luke's at the Crossroads.